Today is another listener's question. Catherine from Canada asked what causes postmenopausal dizziness. As this is something that women can experience at any stage of their life, my answer isn't specific to postmenopausal women only. So if you are experiencing dizziness at any stage during your transition, this is the episode for you. So stay tuned. You're listening to Menopause Natural Solutions, episode 134, Dizziness in Menopause. Welcome to Menopause Natural Solutions, your podcast for all things perimenopause, menopause and beyond. Stay tuned as your host, naturopath Jennifer Harrington, explains how to use natural therapies to find your ultimate health and happiness during your transition. Dear Catherine, thank you for your 5-star review and your question. I'll do my best to answer it for you. Dizziness may be more common than you realise. A study called Dizziness in Peri- and Postmenopausal Women is Associated with Anxiety found that 37% of women in their study, aged between 40 and 65, experienced at least weekly bouts of dizziness. But more on this later. Dizziness is defined as an imprecise term that may refer to the sense of spatial disorientation, the motion of an environment, or lightheadedness. Every woman who experiences dizziness will describe it slightly differently. Some will say they feel like they are spinning. Others feel that they are still, but the world is spinning around them. Some feel lightheaded, others heavy-headed. She might feel unsteady on her feet and feel like she's going to fall. Others experience a sensation of floating or wooziness. I've even had a woman explain her sensation as feeling like she is going to be sucked into a vortex. These sensations may have a trigger. Some common triggers include sitting or standing up, sudden movements, moving your head or even bending down. Other times it hits you out of the blue with no noticeable trigger. Dizziness that is new, severe or prolonged should always be followed up with your medical team, and a trip to emergency may be needed. Some women will have accompanying symptoms like nausea, vomiting, headaches, pain, difficulty breathing, numbness, vision changes, hearing changes, fever, rapid heartbeat, confusion, slurred speech, seizures, and these all require urgent attention. Keeping in mind, I'm a naturopath and not an ER doctor. I don't see women with serious underlying causes of their dizziness. It is possible that something more sinister is going on, and that is why I always check more serious dizziness has been checked with their doctor first. So for our discussion today, I'm going to focus on the most common causes that I see in my clinic, coupled with specific research on the causes of dizziness in menopause. Starting with medication interactions. In most cases, this is interactions between medications and self-prescribed supplements. Remember, all supplements have cautions, contraindications, and interactions. If you are on prescribed medication, you really need to check for interactions. In my initial consultation, I double-check all medications and supplements for potential interactions. Other times it could be that the prescribed medication induces nutritional deficiencies that haven't been addressed. A recent example I have for you is from a beautiful lady who had been on a long-standing potassium product. She loved that product. It had previously made many positive changes for her. But with the introduction of an ACE inhibitor, this started to cause issues. She wasn't aware of the interaction between the seemingly safe supplement and her new medication. I advised her to stop the potassium and her dizziness went away. Blood sugar lows can cause dizziness. This kind of dizziness feels like a jittery lightheadedness, and it may be accompanied by sweating, anxiety, and feeling hangry. Better blood sugar balance is the answer here. upgrading your diet, better management of medications like insulin, or considering supplementation like chromium, berberine, or inositol may help. Walking after a main meal may also be helpful. Please don't overlook this consideration. Blood sugar irregularities increase with age, and postmenopausal women are at a greater risk of diabetes. Dehydration and/or inadequate electrolytes. This can occur suddenly on a hot day, perhaps post-Bikram yoga workout, or the use of a spa or a sauna, or even just a hot flush. If you're experiencing hot flushes and dizziness, I would highly recommend you consider your electrolyte status. An easy fix could be the addition of a daily dose of electrolytes. And I'm a huge fan of electrolytes. Unless you have been told to be on a low salt or low potassium diet, it's worth trying a 7-day electrolyte challenge. Document how you feel at the beginning. Take a daily dose of electrolytes. Now I'm talking clean electrolytes with no sugar, no colours, no flavours, no preservatives. And document how you feel after the 7 days. Has your dizziness reduced? Do you have more energy? Less muscle tension or cramps? Better clarity of thought? Fewer palpitations? Fewer hot flushes? This is a very common cause in the demographic of women I work with. If you would like more information, consider heading back to episode 92, Electrolytes, Dehydration and Menopause. It's also worth noting that many women who are experiencing hot flushes simultaneously experience nausea, headaches, weakness and dizziness all at the same time. But this is normally short-lived and resolved as the flush ends. In this case, it's the reduction of flushes that we are focused on. Anemia is another issue. This kind of dizziness is accompanied by the feeling of weakness and fatigue. The wall becomes your supportive friend when you're trying to cross the room. I call this wall hugging. This is more common in perimenopause with heavy menstrual bleeds. Iron overload, on the other hand, in postmenopausal women can also create the feeling of dizziness. If you haven't tested your ferritin level recently, get to it. The range in your lab report is not the range I use. In my opinion, anything in the triple digits needs to be addressed. Another nutrient involved with dizziness is vitamin B12. This is a very common nutrient deficiency, and it's linked with dizziness, fatigue, brain fog, muscle weakness, and altered peripheral sensations like numbness and pins and needles. This is another blood test I highly recommend, but again, I don't like the lab reference ranges. Aim to be at the very top. But if you would like to know more about vitamin B12, head back to episode 97, Vitamin B12 and Menopause. Anxiety and depression are also common causes of dizziness. Remember the study I mentioned at the beginning? They found that anxiety was the sole factor that was independently associated with dizziness. The greater the anxiety, the greater the risk of developing dizziness. They suggested that psychotherapy, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, may be effective in improving the sensation of dizziness. The same study implied that estrogen fluctuations and deficiency in the menopausal transition might play a role in the development of benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. This is when a change in position triggers dizziness. A separate animal study quoted in the same study found mice with their ovaries removed later developed significant balance issues. A different study called Relationship Between Sleep Quality and Dizziness found that sleep disturbances may be related to some vestibular diseases. The vestibular system is a link between your inner ear and your brain, and it is needed for balance. They suggested that women experiencing dizziness have their sleep quality evaluated. They noticed that sleep disturbances are associated with emotional stress and anxiety, which is another possible contributor to the sensation of dizziness. With estrogen fluctuations in the perimenopausal stage of the transition, some women will experience migraines. The sensation of dizziness or lightheadedness accompanies migraines. The goal here would be to address your migraines first. Osteosarcopenia is another consideration. This is a reduction of bone and muscle. When this occurs in the lower legs, it can increase your risk of developing a sway when you walk and potentiating the sensation of dizziness. Here are a few other causes of dizziness. Ear issues. If your dizziness is accompanied by hearing changes, it could be many ears disease, which is a fluid build-up in your inner ear, or labyrinthitis, an infection in your inner ear. Sinus congestion, low blood circulation, or a sudden drop in blood pressure. Liver issues, neurological disorders can lead to the progressive loss of balance. Fever and infection, injuries, especially head trauma, food intolerance, toxicity. Like, have you been exposed to mold, heavy metals, or chemicals? As these can all contribute to the sensation of dizziness. That was a lot of information that we just covered. And in case I overwhelmed you, let's summarize. 1. If your dizziness is new, severe, or prolonged, start with your GP or ER doctor. 2. If you are on medications or supplements, get them checked for interactions. This can be done by your prescribing doctor, pharmacists, or other healthcare providers like me. 3. Do some testing, but make sure you at least include vitamin B12, ferritins, electrolytes, blood sugar, and blood pressure. 4. Drink more water, and if relevant, include an electrolyte. 5. Consider other causes like anxiety, insomnia, migraines. 6. If possible, work on your lower leg strength. Can you go for a walk on a well day? Can you start a bone and muscle building program? OsteoStrong is one such example, but there are others. 7. Start a dizziness diary. This helps practitioners identify triggers and get to the root cause. 8. Don't give up. There are many different types of practitioners that may be able to provide you help. E.g., physiotherapy has the Epley maneuver, which may benefit some. Chiropractors and osteopaths may suggest cranial work or cranial sacral therapy. There's acupuncture, Bowen therapy, and I'm sure there are more options. 9. The last option I want to suggest is that you book an appointment with me, and I will hold your hand and walk you through these steps and more. I'll leave a link in the show notes if you'd like to book an initial consultation. Thanks again, Catherine, for your question. I hope you found a few ideas about addressing your dizziness. If you have a topic that I haven't covered on the podcast yet, feel free to email hello@menopausenaturalsolutions.com with your ideas or questions, and I'll see what I can do. Wishing you a fabulous week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Menopause Natural Solutions. This podcast contains general information about menopause. It is provided as a guide, and it is not intended to replace medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend.